Here at Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, we have determined the exact science behind a quality Kid of the Week. It all comes down to proper sound design. A high-quality child features enhanced punches and kicks. A poor quality child has to settle for cartoon sounds when he falls down. Observe the science behind the Kid of the Week in the 25th episode of the all-new Mighty Morphin Zyurangers. As of our last installment, Barai is dead. That changes things. Following a series of big event episodes like those, Live Again Ju Soken serves as a low-stakes breather episode. It's a monster, the heroes fight it. The stakes aren't any bigger than any other episode. The story's tone is relatively lighthearted and gentle. But at the same time, it's a rather important episode too. Its job is to establish what the dynamic is now that Barai is gone. What effect does that have on everyone else? Surprisingly, that question is answered by focusing on Dragon Caesar as a character. Specifically, it's accomplished by framing him as a grieving pet that has lost his owner. And that's just weird enough to work. The episode opens with Dragon Caesar seemingly going on a rampage. Even the Zyurangers start to fight him before they realize that he's actually uncovered a burrowing monster, Dora Antaeus. And that idea of Dragon Caesar as a misunderstood outsider carries through the episode. Caesar holds down the monster so the individual guardian beasts can finish it off. But despite that, the Zyurangers all praise their own guardian beasts. Some a bit more highly than others. Well said, Goshi. Well said. And it's understandable, all the characters have personal ties to their own beasts. However, in this case, it highlights that Dragon Caesar doesn't have that anymore. And Geki, to his credit, is emotionally aware enough to understand that. To his discredit, though, he decides to nip this in the bud with all of the sensitivity of a 1950s dad who thinks that hugging is for girls, and crying is only okay if your favorite sports team become communists. Forget about my brother, you're with me now. Seriously, that's what he says. Shockingly, this motivational speech leaves Dragon Caesar in even greater despair, to the point that Bandora is able to use a spell that immobilizes him. And this is right as Dora Antaeus returns, stronger than ever, and the Zyurangers really need Dragon Caesar's help. Well, Geki, maybe you shouldn't have been such an ass. Like most of Zyurangers' more esoteric episodes, this is a concept Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is going to have trouble with from the word go. Dragon Caesar has always come across a bit more like an excited puppy than the other guardian beasts, who are typically grumpy, murderous gods. When you think about it, it's kind of a funny dynamic, and it makes you wonder how the other robots view him, but that's its own weird fanfic opportunity. Suffice it to say, you should know by now that the Zords in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers aren't typically shown to be grieving and hallucinating and having conversations with the humans. They are empty robots controlled by humans, nothing more. I have to imagine it was kinda hard to come up with a way to adapt this. In fact, I posit it was so difficult, such a mind teaser, that the process was akin to when a Pokemon hurts itself in its confusion. I can see the writers running around going, "Oh no, 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 we can't do this story! What kind of stories do we do? There's a kid who has a problem. Oh wait, that's Zyurangers thing too. We don't do that. Oh, we already wrote it." Yes, in an effort to make Birds of a Feather more like Power Rangers and less like Zyuranger, they incorporate a Kid of the Week into a Zyuranger episode that actually doesn't have a kid in it. This time around, Zack's little martial arts protege Cameron is insecure competing against Bulk and Skull's martial arts protege Biff. But at least he has Zack there in his corner. Oh wait, no he doesn't. Zordon calls the Power Rangers away just as the martial arts competition starts, so Zack has to abandon his student. Oh, that's so painful. It doesn't affect anything. It's never mentioned or fretted over while they're fighting the monster. Zack comes back at the end to find that Cameron has made it to the finals just fine without him. And to prove that he has learned absolutely nothing, Zack promises Cameron he will not leave again. That seems like a reckless thing at best to say, given that his life as a secret superhero means that his time does not belong to him. I guess Zack is genre savvy enough to know that we're at the end of the episode, so Rita's going to be a good sport and not do anything else evil right now. Consider that this is the first episode after Tommy's departure. Zyuranger is all about that, even bringing back Izumi Shiro for a few shots just to drive in the point that he's not actually there. In Birds of a Feather, Tommy is not seen or mentioned at all. Everything is back to business as usual. In both episodes, this is the first time we see Geki and Jason utilize the power of the departed teammate. Why are we framing any of this around Zack? Don't get me wrong, Zack definitely deserved to have more episodes, but this is the weirdest one to give to him. As such, the Kid of the Week plot has nothing to do with the action plot. I feel like this should have at least been switched to Jason, then maybe you could find some connection about responsibility or doing what needs to be done, I don't know. Probably not, but it's still closer to an idea than this. Live Again Jusoken opens with a different structure. A monster appears and the heroes seemingly defeat it within the first 4 minutes. I always love when formula-heavy shows break their patterns, because you know something crazy's gonna happen. Bondora's henchmen even comment on her wasting a monster. It turns out she didn't. Dora Antaias' special skill is that he always comes back from death. Not only that, but he absorbs damage, making him stronger every time he's hurt. Yada yada Dragon Ball reference. Dora Antaias is named for the wrestler from Greek mythology who remains invincible so long as he keeps contact with the ground. So while Dora Antaias is a pushover the first time they defeat him, by the end he's thrashing them effortlessly. With Dragon Caesar now out of the picture, things are dire. There's this really great moment where the Zyurangers hesitate using their lightning cut. They figured out their attacks only make Antaias stronger, and know this is ultimately going to screw them over even worse. However, he's about to kill them right now, so they don't have any choice. I appreciate when even the stock finishing move carries emotional weight. Sure enough, to their horror and grim resignation, they see Dora Antaias immediately reform himself. Fortunately though, this time Geki notices that Antaias reforms around a particular spot. His heart is what allows him to respawn, so Geki decides to take the fight to the enemy. Just like in our last comparison, we see a monster in Zyuranger with a special skill that is hidden from the heroes, one that the heroes have to figure out in order to overcome. Now, you might remember last time, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers threw all of that into a garbage can. Zordon tells the Rangers that Cyclops can take on any form, so they are never tricked by him. But they wouldn't be dumb enough to do that 2 episodes in a yep! Zordon tells the Rangers that the only way to finish off the Hatchosaurus is to defeat the Cardiatron computer inside of him. I just don't understand why this show sabotages its own plots, sabotages the footage that it has to use. Not only is this infinitely less interesting, it results in the Power Rangers stupidly floundering about for half the episode, killing the monster, then acting confused as to why it's not working. Why isn't it working? Did you not listen to the exposition? Eventually, finally, mercifully, Jason remembers Cardiatron and decides to actually do something about it. As if all that time in between wasn't tedious enough, it's filled with so many things that don't make sense. Since the Dragon Zord doesn't have feelings and isn't grieving anything, there's no real explanation for why Rita is able to control him here, but not any other time. Since the Dragon Zord doesn't have feelings and is just a robot, it's kinda weird that Rita finds him walking around on his own, just taking a stroll. After the Power Rangers defeat the Hatchosaurus the first time, and Zordon has to bring them back to the command center to remind them that he already told them how to handle this, they're all wearing vastly different clothes than they were at the beginning. Is this a continuity error, or are we supposed to assume that this is another day? That the Rangers went home, went to bed, and Zordon somehow didn't realize until hours later that they didn't defeat the Cardiatron he told them about? And if that is the case, Cameron's martial arts competition goes on for a very long time.
I'm sorry I had to bail on you yesterday.
That tiny break, I should note, is also the only pause in the fight. Birds of a Feather is not structured any differently from a typical Power Rangers episode. It doesn't have the action opening followed by the monster returning later. It's juice bar, fight a monster, juice bar, same as always. Power Rangers even manages to omit all the stuff about Dora Antaeus getting stronger each time he's fought. Some of the new skills he evolves are just skipped over because we need more time to see these two kids we don't care about fight each other. Seriously, just name any element related to the monster and I can assure you that this episode finds a way to screw it up.
A visitor, how nice!
Shut it, Spanky, you didn't talk in the original. So here's the moment that the episode is known for. The leader dons the dragon shield and weapon and uses them to finish the bad guy. And there's really no way to screw it up. If you'll allow me to be self-indulgent again, after I watched The Green Candle as a kid and saw Jason take over Tommy's powers, I was really excited about that. I remember going to school the next day and wondering how this would work in episodes going forward. I speculated that Jason's transformation invocation would be updated to Dragonzord Tyrannosaurus. Fortunately, that awkward mouthful did not happen. Seeing Jason and Geki achieve this is exciting, but I admit I was always disappointed that it didn't become the default state for the character from this point on. Instead, they barely use it. I guess they would have had to refilm all their stock shots of him, but from a logical standpoint, there's no reason why Jason wouldn't use it all the time. As for Geki, well, it's kind of the culmination of his character journey. Jason uses the extra power to break Rita's spell on the Dragonzord, but for Geki it symbolizes rectifying his earlier mistake. Rather than tell Dragon Caesar to suck it up, he actually sympathizes with the poor creature. My brother's not gone, he lives on. In our hearts. Get it? I was inspired to make this heartfelt speech because I'm being felt up by a heart. Geki dons the dragon shield now because this is the moment he actually steps up and takes responsibility for what his brother left behind. Dragon Caesar this episode acts as a proxy to Geki overcoming his own grief. For Jason, it's just a power-up, nothing deeper than that. But he does get to say this super cool line.
Not for that geek with the beak!
So cool. Oh, and minor gripe on the Zyuranger end that carries over to Power Rangers, there's this one shot where there's something on the shield. I'm pretty sure it's a squib from the earlier explosions. Don't get me wrong, I love catching stuff like this. I'm just amazed they didn't notice this giant out-of-place special effect while filming such a close shot that's held on forever. Hey, filming is hard. Now, you would think we would go on to the scoring section of our program, but no. We're not actually done here. This is going to be a very special episode of Mighty Morphin Zyurangers because we're just gonna go do this whole thing again. Cue the next title card! Yeah, it turns out that Live Again Ju Soken was an episode so nice, they adapted it twice. Just over 11 months later, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers went back to the well and used this same footage with this same monster to do the same thing all over again, and it just blows my mind. So that requires us to talk about Season 2. Thankfully, I've already made a video entitled Mighty Morphin Zyurangers that explains all about how insane the process of adapting into Season 2 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was. Briefly though, Zyuranger ended, so MMPR began adapting Gosei Sentai Dairanger. There's a new original villain, Lord Zedd. The show incorporates Dairanger's mecha as Thunderzords, upgrades to the Dinozords. With the exception of Tommy becoming the White Ranger, the Zyuranger costumes were kept, meaning there was very little Dairanger footage they could use. It's a beautiful mess. And for the record, I think it was the right move. Everybody always says, oh, they should have just used the Dairanger costumes. No, they shouldn't have. To Americans, this was still an untested entity. To everyone in 1994, this is what the Power Rangers looked like. To most people in 2023, this is what the Power Rangers look like. Saban was smart in changing just enough to freshen up the show while not alienating people. They could only change so much. The characters and costumes were the show. Mucking around with either of those would just be too big a risk. Anyway, right after Tommy became the White Ranger, Austin St. John, Tui Trang, and Walter Jones walked out over a pay dispute. And that brings us to the Ninja Encounter, a 3-part story meant to introduce the new characters who would eventually replace Jason, Trini, and Zack as Power Rangers, while also trying to hide the fact that Jason, Trini, and Zack are even gone. I just rewatched it for the first time in years, and it is awful. And yes, some of it is because they're missing half their cast. The whole thing is full of an obvious focus on Tommy, Kimberly, and Billy, the only 3 Rangers they could do anything with. There are the obvious body doubles staged to be looking away from the camera. There are the obvious vocal doubles that only sound vaguely like the characters they're impersonating.
Oh man, can you do that?
There is the obvious recycling of the same few shots of the departed actors looking concerned and saying generic enough lines that they could be inserted into any episode.
I'll contact the others right now.
We read you, Zordon.
But even ignoring all of that, this is still terrible. The point is to introduce Rocky, Aisha, and Adam and have them discover the identities of the Power Rangers, setting them up as allies now so they can later step in when Jason, Zack, and Trini are called away to a peace conference. That's it. That really doesn't take 3 episodes to establish. And I don't know why they were stalling for time anyway. They already had the replacement actors to slot in. They somehow carry on this fake shimp farce for 8 whole episodes before actually writing Jason, Zack, and Trini out of the show. So did we really need a several-minute-long baby carriage chase? Did the first episode need to be paced so slowly it doesn't feature a single transformed Power Ranger or establish a monster? Did we really need jetting? And did we really need the Ninja Encounter Part 2, an episode where almost literally nothing happens, so that the Rangers can fight a monster they already fought? If you thought Birds of a Feather stripped this footage of its relevant context, you ain't seen nothing yet. Let's get you up to speed. Lord Zedd has kidnapped Rocky, Aisha, and Adam in an attempt to turn them into his own dark ninjas. To distract the Rangers, he has created a new monster, Terror Blossom. But since this episode is a complete waste of time, and Terror Blossom can't be defeated until the next episode, Terror Blossom reveals he has the extraordinarily random power of making his own Hatchosaurus to fight instead. So the monster can make its own monster? Okay. So yeah, the exact same fight footage from Birds of a Feather is reused. That's fun. Actually, it's even worse than that. That footage uses robots that aren't in the show anymore, so stock shots of the Thunder Megazord and Tiger Zord have to be edited in place of the Megazord and Dragon Zord. In my old video, I referred to this as reverse angle syndrome. They can't use any shots of the villains and the heroes together, so there are generic punch shots, followed by generic falling back shots, all done with reverse angles. It makes for very stilted and undynamic fight scenes. And when they can't do that, Megazord is clearly visible. This is a common problem in Season 2, and is even worse here because it's all been seen before. Well, most of it has. To its credit, this episode actually uses the upgraded attacks Birds of a Feather left out. It's still not treated as a result of the damage he takes, he just gets new powers. This seemingly only kills a few minutes, but uh-oh, it's time for the twist! They brought back Cardiatron too. Yeah, we're literally doing the whole thing again. At least they actually let it be a twist this time, but that is the only nice thing I can say about how they handled this. I know I was complaining before that it's only been a year, but if you haven't seen the episode this is ripping off, you're gonna be lost. Alpha and Zordon just start talking about Cardiatron. Oh no, the Cardiatron is still there. You have to beat the Cardiatron. It's not gonna work without Cardiatron. Never, at any point, do they bother to explain what that even is. And it doesn't matter. The Rangers go back, kill the Hatchosaurus through the same method of badly splicing footage together, and it dies for good this time. Cardiatron never comes up again. I hate this episode. Cardiatron has nothing to do with this story. Hatchosaurus has nothing to do with this story. However, this pointless repetition of killing a monster just to kill it again is very on brand for the theme of this episode. What do I mean by that? Over in the kidnapping plot, Aisha spends the whole episode trying to pick their lock with a hairpin. She finally succeeds, only for Goldar to show up and immediately kidnap them again. What else do the Rangers do? Well, Zordon splits them into teams consisting of We Got Actors and We Don't Got Actors, one to rescue the teens and one to fight the monster. After about 5 seconds, Zordon recalls the teen team because they have to help in the fight. Once the Hatchosaurus is destroyed, Zordon splits them into teams consisting of We Got Actors and We Don't Got Actors, one to rescue the teens and one to fight the monster. After about 5 seconds, Zordon recalls the teen team because they had to help in the fight. Seriously, they even use the same shots both times! And the Rangers leaving is just the same shot as them arriving, played backwards! Ah! So, the teens are captured twice, the Rangers split up twice, the Rangers fight and kill the same monster twice. We end things almost exactly where we started. I hate this episode. I sympathize with the casting problems they were having, but that was almost certainly a problem of their own making. Besides, spotting the fakes is what makes it so bad it's hilarious. Everything else is what makes it so bad it's painful. Let's score these, first with Birds of a Feather. Seeing this episode excited me as a kid, but I don't think nostalgia is going to win out this time. For story, we have a unique monster and a unique structure versus same old, same old. That's definitely a win for Zyuranger. For characters, we have a robot overcoming grief versus a kid we don't get to know in the slightest. Also Zyuranger. And for action, a lot of what is strategic about the fight is lost in favor of plot-induced stupidity. Unless you're really invested in two kids having a sparring match, you have to agree with me. It's Zyuranger all the way. Now let's move over to the Ninja Encounter Part 2. It's Zyuranger, Zyuranger, Zyuranger. I'm giving Zyuranger as many points as I can. There are not enough points I can give it to adequately express how much better it is in every way than the Ninja Encounter Part 2. Power Rangers, what you produced is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever watched. At no point in your rambling, incoherent episode were you even close to anything that could be considered narrative value. Every child in the 90s is now dumber for having watched it. I award you no points, and may Daijujin have mercy on your soul. Okay, I guess a simple wrong would have done just fine. But I'll see you next time, where Power Rangers will almost certainly do better. Because I refuse to believe it can do any worse. And for the record, I think it was the right... Damn it.